Hello students, welcome to another lecture Understanding Biology chapter 25. Today we are going to learn about fungi. At the end of this lecture you should be able to compare fungal tissues with animal and plant tissues, relate the structure of fungi to their nutritional strategy, distinguish between different kinds of symbiotic relationships involving fungi, describe ecological roles played by lichens, compare and contrast arbuscular mycorrhizae and ectomycorrhizae, explain why the relationships between leafcutter ant and certain fungi is an obligate symbiosis, explain why treating fungal infections in animal is particularly difficult. So fungi are believed to be more close related to plants than animal, but actually in reality fungi shares more recent common ancestor with animals. Therefore they are more close related to animals. Mycologists actually estimate that there may be as many as 1.5 million species of fungi. Most of these fungi are multicellular, but one group is unicellular. Their nutritional strategy is absorbing externally digested nutrients, so we call them saprophytes. They are rapidly distributed throughout the organisms after absorbing. So fungi actually use variety of life strategies to succeed in diverse ecological niches, and some of these fungi are mutualistic, some are parasitic, some are free living. So these actually we are going to, throughout this lecture we are going to learn about many different aspects of fungi, including their general biology, how their mycelia, what are their reproduction strategies, are they causing diseases, similar things. We are going to learn more about fungi throughout this lecture. So let's first look at the general biology of fungi. Fungi grow in two basic ways. One is as unicellular forms such as yeast, or they can grow as multicellular thread-like forms called mycelia. So when you see a fungi growing in a piece of bread, the white thread-like stuff is actually mycelia. So mycelia are actually aggregation of slender filamentous structures called hypae. These hypae consist of single cells joined end to end and all surrounded by a common cell wall. Some hypae are continuous, they are hence called choanocytic, while others are separated from one another by a perforated wall called septum. This septum allows the flow of cytoplasm, making them connectively one large cell. This cytoplasmic streaming is an adaptation that allows fungi to grow rapidly when nutrition and moisture are abundant. In this picture you can see a fungal mycelia showing septums, hypa, and how they look under the microscope here. So now you know that the mass of connected hypae is called mycelium. A mycelia is the main body of multicellular fungi that allow them to grow into one or on through soil or wood or tissue of host organisms. So they grow through and digest its substrate, whatever the substrate that they are growing in, and when growth conditions are not optimal, they produce reproductive structures. So that is also very interesting biology of fungi. So mycelia actually can be huge, therefore have a high surface area to volume ratio. So therefore absorption of nutrition is very effective. You know, when the surface to volume area is higher, that means they're very effective on absorbing nutrients. And like I mentioned, fungi actually have the ability to produce these reproductive structures when the conditions are not optimal, and they produce spores, and then these spores are very resilient. They can survive high heat and less nutrition, and they can actually go and start a new mushroom somewhere else. These reproductive structures of fungi are very obvious form, especially for mushrooms. Their fungal cell walls Actually they actually grow out from wherever the substrate that they grow, especially mushrooms. You might have seen when you walk in the road, sometimes a old log might have these beautiful fruiting bodies. So these are actually reproductive structures. So let's look into fungal cell walls. So cell walls of fungi actually contain chitin, unlike cell walls of plants which contain cellulose. These chitins is very similar to cellulose, and chitin is also found in exoskeletons of mollusks, insects, and crustaceans. This shared feature is part of the evidence that fungi are more closely related to animals, and also another evidence is that both fungi and animals store excess glucose in the form of glucagon. So that is also another shared characteristics. So now we are moving on to understanding their structures. So fungi are different from most animals and plants because each cell or hypa can have 1, 2 or more nuclei. So this is actually very different from any other organism. A hypa with only 1 nucleus is called monokaryotic, while with 2 nuclei is called dikaryotic. In dikaryotic hypae, 2 haploid nuclei actually exist independently inside the same cytoplasm. So both genomes are actually transcribed. So many times, sometimes many nuclei intermingle in the common cytoplasm of a fungal mycelium, which can lack distinct cells. If a dikaryotic or multinucleate hypa has a nuclei that are derived from 2 genetically distinct individuals, the hypa is called heterokaryotic. So that is also another term that you might not have heard. So that is called heterokaryotic when they have 2 nuclei that are genetically distinct individuals that's living in the same cytoplasm. So hypae whose nuclei are genetically similar to one another are called homokaryotic. So that is about their status of nucleus. Now let's look into focus on the reproduction of fungi. So reproduction of fungi is dramatically influenced by their body design and several key aspects. In this part, we are going to look at cell division. So in fungi, cell division does not always follow mitosis. In most higher eukaryotic, cell division include replication and segregation of genetic material followed by cytokinesis. In most filamentous fungi, nucleus is the unit of cell division. So so that is also very important to remember, that nucleus is the unit of cell division in most filamentous fungi, and sometimes the cytokinesis does not occur. In many fungal mitosis, the nuclear envelope does not break down. So mitotic spindle forms within the nucleus. Except in chytrid, mitotic spindle are formed using a spindle pole bodies, and centrioles are actually absent. So this is actually how cell division occurs in fungi. And especially when we focus on the fungal reproduction, many fungi are capable of producing both sexual and asexual spores. So that means that they have sexual and asexual reproduction. When a fungus is reproducing sexually, 2 haploid hypae actually of compatible mating types may come together and fuse. So this fusion has to happen, but the 2 mating types has to be compatible for the hypae to be fused. And then in a dikaryon stage, the fusion of 2 haploid cells during the reproduction immediately result in a diploid cell in other organisms, such as some fungi, plants, and animals. But in other fungi, such as basidiomycetes and ascomycetes, an intervening dikaryotic stage occurs before the parental nuclei fuse and form a diploid nucleus. Some fungi may produce specialized reproductive structures that make spores. for an example, mushroom and puffballs. Fungi form 4 general types of reproductive structures. These could be motile zoospores, zoosporangia, basidia, and asci. So now that we are talking about spores, reproduction, let's go and talk about spores. So spores are the most common means of reproduction among fungi. These spores are very resilient to drying out, heating, and freezing. Spores may form as a result of asexual or sexual processes and often dispersed by wind, insects, or other small animals. When spores land in a suitable place, they germinate, give rise to a hypa that can grow into a new fungal mycelium. Few fungal hypa retain ancestral flagella and they have motile zoospores. These species actually have to live in wet or moist environments. Now that we are done talking about general aspects of reproduction, let's move on to fungal nutrition. So fungi, like animals, are heterotrophs. They are not autotrophs. They obtain carbon and energy from breaking down organic compounds. Fungi secrete digestive enzymes and then absorb digested organic molecules after digesting it outside of the body. These are decomposers. We call them decomposers. In order to absorb nutrients efficiently, fungi increases their surface to volume ratio, like I mentioned before. Single cellular fungi such as yeast have a high surface to area volume ratio. Other fungi with extensive thread-like network of hypae provide enormous surface area for enzyme secretion and nutrition absorption. So that is worthwhile to remember how they actually efficiently absorb nutrients. This is one of the reasons for fungi's rapid growth. Another important aspect about fungal nutrition is that there are many fungi that are able to break down cellulose in wood. Most fungi can also digest lignin. Many of these fungi contain specialized metabolic pathways that allow them to obtain nutrition from the woody substance as well as nematodes. In this picture you can see a fungi growing on a bark of a tree and also another fungi that actually wrap around in the body of a nematode and obtain nutrition from the nematode. And these fungi that actually obtaining nutrition from nematode, they immobilize the nematode and use them as a source of nitrogen, which is pretty interesting. So let's move on to ecology of fungi. I thought this part is very important to know about what kind of service fungi do for the ecosystem that they are living on. So fungi actually has an enormous ecological impact. As you know, fungi together with bacteria are the principal decomposers in the biosphere. And if we don't have fungi or bacteria, there will be a lot of decaying material. Material will not decay actually. Dead bodies will stay like that and they will not decay. And we will have piles and piles of lot of things that we don't want that will not recycle into the environment. They help breaking down this organic material and return substances locked in these molecules to circulate back into the ecosystem. So by breaking down cellulose, lignin, like insoluble organic substance, they help releasing carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus and make them available for other organisms. So in addition to their role as decomposers and their function or help as into the ecology of the environment that they are living on, fungi actually involved in a range of different relationships such as symbiosis. And actually it is also with variety of organisms. In some cases, the relationship is essential for the survival of the fungi, then it is called obligate symbiosis. Right? When the relationship is very necessary for the survival, it's called obligate symbiosis. In other cases, fungi can survive without of its symbiotic partner, and this type of relationship is called facultative, non-essential. facultative symbiosis. We can identify three kinds of symbiotic relationships. So we can have pathogens. They are parasites, gain resources from their host and have a negative effect on the host that they can lead to death. We have commensal. So commensal symbiosis benefit the partner but doesn't harm the other. And then we also have mutualistic that benefit both partners. So these are the three different kinds of symbiotic relationship that fungi can have with their host. The first relationship that we are going to talk about today is endophytic fungi. So the talking about relationship of fungi with other organisms, endophytic fungi live inside plants. They obtain nutrition from plants and in some cases produce compounds that protect the plant against herbivores. So endophytic relationship between fungi and the plant can be parasitic, commensal or mutualistic. That is very interesting. Another relationship that fungi has are lichens. You might have heard about lichens before. Lichens are also an example of symbiosis between a fungus and a photosynthetic partner. Many lichens are mutual, but some fungi can be parasitic on their photosynthetic partner. Ascomycetes are found in most lichens as fungal partner, while their photosynthetic partner can be cyanobacteria, green algae, or both. So relationship of fungi and its photosynthetic partner is pretty interesting in a lichen. So we are going to further look into composition and ecology of lichens. Specialized fungal hyphae actually penetrate the photosynthetic cell walls and transfer nutrition directly to that partner. Even though they penetrate the cell wall, they do not penetrate their plasma membrane. There are biochemical signals that send out by the fungus direct its partner to produce metabolic substances that it would not produce normally without in the symbiotic relationship. So fungi protect their partner from strong light and desiccation, and lichens actually have invaded the harshest habitats, and they actually have striking colors which plays a role in protecting photosynthetic partner by the fungi that they have. Now we are going into another type of relationship. It's actually the fungi that have symbiotic relationship with roots of plants. These type of relationship, the fungi are called mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae are the fungi that form mutualistic relationship with plant roots. So about 90% of all plant families have a form of obligate symbiotic relationship with fungi called mycorrhizae. So fungal mycorrhizae associations act as extensions of plant's root system. Fungal hyphae increases the surface area of the plant root that is in contact with the soil. Plant on the other side supply fungus safe place to live and actually sugars to the fungi. That is the benefit that the fungi is getting. So there are two types of mycorrhizae. They can be either arbesicular mycorrhizae or ectomycorrhizae. So let's first look into arbesicular mycorrhizae. Arbesicular mycorrhizae by far the most common than ectomycorrhizae, and they are associated with about 80% of all plant species. Fungal partner is always glomeromycete. These glomeromycetes doesn't have above ground reproductive fruiting structures. These obligate symbiotic relationship allow plants to grow in the infertile soil. That is one of the benefits. In arbesicular mycorrhizal fungal hyphae penetrate the root cell wall of plants, making a close contact with the cell's plasma membrane, but do not penetrate the plasma membrane. As you can see in this picture, they do penetrate, but they do not penetrate the cell wall, but they do not penetrate the plasma membrane. So they are potentially capable of increasing crop yields with the lower phosphate and energy inputs. So the next interaction that we are going to talk about is ectomycorrhizae. On the other hand, these ectomycorrhizae are associated with the fewer plant species. Most ectomycorrhizal hosts are forest trees such as pine, oak, and birch. Majority of fungal species in ectomycorrhizae are basidiomycetes. These fungi will extract nitrogen and other nutrients from the soil and pass it to the plant host to give benefit for the plant. And plant host actually provide sugar for the ectomycorrhizae. So ectomycorrhizae actually grow around and extend between the root cells but never penetrate the host cell wall. So you can see that it is going around the cell but never penetrate the host cell wall. Now that we talked about several plant fungi interactions, why not look into some animal mutualistic symbiotics with fungi? So fungi has the ability to create similar relationship with animals. So there are many fungal animal symbioses that have been identified currently. One example is this leaf cutter ant and a certain fungi. So before we talked about that, I want to mention here there are other fungi that actually popular that live in the gut of ruminant animals such as cows and help them digesting lignin and cellular. So these ruminant ruminant organism actually provide a nutrition-rich place for the fungi to live. So that is also interesting relationship of fungi. But let's get back into this leaf cutter ant. So when you look at leaf cutter ants relationship, these leaf cutter ants and some species of basidiomycetes have a symbiotic relationship. Actually, ants have domesticated and farmed these fungi in an underground garden. Ants provide fungi with these leaves, and fungi digest the leaf and use it as a nutrition source. While ants to control these fungi, so they cause billions of dollars in agricultural losses because of the diseases that they cause in plants. So fungi are among the most harmful pests of living plants. They can also spoil harvested or stored food products. So this actually is a big headache for farmers. Fungi can actually destroy plants. They are destroying leaf and they are destroying the fruits. So this can cause huge revenue loss in agriculture. So one example of fungi that harm plant is actually this aflatoxin. So some fungi has the ability to secrete toxin. So you might have heard about aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is actually produced by Aspergillus species that grow on corn, peanut, and cotton seeds. So it is said that it is a strong neurotoxin and it could cause severe kidney and nervous system damage in animals including humans. So when you eat peanuts, they say that you have to make sure it is not contaminated with this aflatoxin, and it could really damage you. So in contrast to aflatoxin's harmful effect, there are corn smut, which you might have seen in cornfields. It's a maize fungal disease that is harmful for the plant but not for the animals. Corn smut is actually caused by a basidiomycete Ustilago midis. So it is actually edible. You can actually cook this corn smut and eat it. It's a very delicacy among certain people. And other than plants, actually humans and animals can get infected by fungi. There are some common fungal diseases in humans such as ringworm, athlete's foot, nail fungus, and oral and vaginal candidiasis. These fungal diseases can be treated with tropical antifungal ointments and stuff like that, and in some cases with oral medication. Unfortunately, these fungal diseases can be difficult to treat due to the close phylogenetic relationship of fungi with humans and animals. When a pathogen is closely related to the host, it is difficult to find drugs that will not harm the host. So this is one of the reasons why we cannot effectively treat fungus in humans without actually killing or damaging the host. So let's look into an example of a parasitic fungal animal symbiosis. So this is actually Chytridiomyces mycosis was first identified in 1998 as an emerging infectious disease of amphibians. Because of this, amphibian population have been declining worldwide for over 3 decades. Scientists actually discovered this chytrid Batrachochytrium dendrobatidis encased in the skin of amphibians. It is possible that this chytrid caused changes in the symbiotic relationship between the variety of bacteria and the living in the amphibian skin, which actually lead to the death of the amphibian, which I think pretty sad, because amphibians are now becoming endangered worldwide. So that is last slide. So in summary, fungus consists of a mass of hyphae termed mycelium. Cell division in fungi divides the nucleus, but not always the hyphae. Sexual reproduction can occur when hyphae of two different mating types fuse. Dikaryotic stages of life cycle can occur when haploid nuclei do not fuse but share the cytoplasm. Fungi are primary decomposers in the ecosystem. Fungi relationship with other organisms can be pathogenic, parasitic, commensal, or mutualistic. Fungal infections in plants and animals can be challenging to control because of their close phylogenetic relationships. So I hope you enjoy this lecture. Until we meet with another lecture, I hope you have a good day. Thank you.